Yes, the Master. 30 days of good news with the Master. Day 25. Here we are. We are here at midnight for you who are entering just now and you haven't been with us before. All of it is on YouTube, ready for you, as well as 21 days with Paul and Stephen. Hello, Jusara. Love the loving faces there and smiley faces. Hello, Adilson. What a chapter today. What a study. Good news, good news. And you know, we only bring good news because there are news that are not so good, right? So we're talking about the need of, that's very interesting, the contrast. The need for good news when we need them, when we don't have them. It seems so easy to understand this, but not necessarily. And I'm saying this because the current times, we are in a planet of transition in which we really need to focus on the positive. We're learning on the earth how to stay positive, how to be optimistic, though realistic, right? Hello, dear sis. I love the flower and the star. And Fred Gouveia, Rihanna. Hello, my friend. Hello, Felicia. Thank you for the blessings. Yes, every morning with the message of the Master, Master Christ Jesus. Hello, sunshine. Well, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, the good news of the Master. Let it shine. Today's chapter 25. And you know, it's interesting because every single chapter, the way Humberto de Campos writes the book, if we propose to do a literary analysis of the book, of course, we're not talking about scholarly analysis, but we're going to observe that there are educational purposes for the way he's writing. And each chapter, he chooses a profile, at least one main profile that exists on the earth that could potentially be a facet of us that is still inside of us, so we can adjust, calibrate, and avoid mistakes. Today, chapter 24, sorry, it's 24, Jusara. You're right. It's 24. Day 24. No, I don't want to expedite it. Thank you, Jusara. It's actually chapter 24, right? Hello, Rudy. Rudy, you ready? Ready, Rudy, ready. That's great. Love it. Hello, Rosa. Yeah, I don't want it to end either. You're right. Such an experience together, right? Chapter 24. The Apostles' Illusion. Right, Katya. Let it shine. The good news of today begins with the chapter. The Apostles' Illusion. Hello, Margaret. Thank you for the flowers. Flowers for everybody. Now, before we begin, Solange, flowers, João Bosco. Before we begin reading and discussing, let us ask this question. Do we by any chance recognize moments in our lives in which we are attached to illusions? Have we ever realized things that we thought were true and we realized later that we were just experiencing illusions in life? Our ego doesn't allow us to see it. But when we calibrate ourselves for the progress of our lives, when we open and expand with the teachings of the Christ consciousness, we are able to recognize that we are living under several illusions. What are they? Is there a main illusion in our life nowadays? Can I give you an example? I'll give you an example. I know somebody who was a spiritist. No names, but it's like Kardec. He shared the cases so we could learn. When we learn from others, we can progress faster. Law of society. And this person worked so hard to do her PhD. It was the dream of her life to be a doctor and to have a doctor degree in the hands, etc. That day came by. She graduated. Soon after, I met this person and I said, "How are you feeling? Relieved?" And she said, "No, I'm feeling empty." Empty? What do you mean? I don't know what to do next. Why not? You know, having a doctorate degree in my hands was everything I dreamt of. Now I got it and I'm like, life goes on. Past this moment, what do I do next? And it's interesting because this person was offered a postdoctoral position, was working as a postdoc, and all the offers that she received to teach, to expand her technical and expertise in general, she was refusing it because she said, you know, I'm not planning on going anywhere. And for the people to whom she was working with, you know, getting a PhD is just a new beginning. That's what it is. It's like marriage. Some people thinking, you get married, that's it. No. That's it for the end of your single life. Now you're beginning another life. Are you ready? It's like having a child. People dream of having children. They have children like that's it, and then you get to know you're not going to sleep as much as you want, and you're not going to do and everything else. Illusions in life. Illusions. We often think, the day I buy my dream home, and then you buy the dream home, and like, you look around, and like, what do I do next? These are illusions. These are illusions in our lives. It's good to have goals, but Joana de Angelis, through Divaldo Franco, reminds us of the importance, and it's in the book Happy Life, which you can buy. I think nowadays the easiest resource is either Leal Publisher in Miami or the SGNY's website. Now, for us in that book, Happy Life, Joana de Angelis says, above goals, we need to have ideals, but immortal ideals. That's the safety net against illusions. Let us now dive. We're diving in the waters of the Master, in his beautiful sea of good news, very calm, very soothing, very tranquil. Hello, Felipe and Elisa, Marcos, Falcão, the Spiritist Painter, Rita de Cássia, hello. Friends, ready? Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier begins. Chapter 24, The Apostles' Illusion. Jesus arrived at Jerusalem, where he was greeted with a shower of flowers. Remember, we're approaching the end of Jesus' experience in that incarnation. Shower of flowers. It's interesting that Humberto de Campos titles Apostles' Illusion, and he begins with that first statement, because it's as I'm saying, like in between the lines you're learning. Illusions. Some people, they're applauded by the public, the audience, and they think I'm doing great. But Jesus didn't have that illusion. He didn't. The apostle did, not the master. He's saying the apostle's illusion, but he begins by saying that the master was showered with flowers. But we'll see. He did not fall in the trap of that illusion. The applause of people on the earth. People are applauding us too much. We're not walking the narrow door. We're not walking the narrow door. Because sooner or later, if we do, people are not going to be very satisfied with us. Hello, Elia. Hello, Osvaldo and Selena. Good to be with all of you today. Now, in the afternoon, after public consecration, James and Judas walked side by side on an old road lined by olive trees that would take them to the humble but happy homes of Bethlehem. Judas Iscariot's his face showed deep unrest. See, symptoms of when we're living illusions in life. Unrest, mark it down. We're going to learn how to recognize when we're living under the umbrella of illusions. Unrest is one of them. Hello, Jackie. So, while in the serene gaze of Zebedee's son, James, flared the soft and mild light that consoles the faithful souls. So here, before we see the Master, we're going to see the dialogue between two apostles who had opposite approaches when they were invited to embrace the Christ consciousness. James, the brother of John, son of Zebedee, who embraced it with all his heart and was loyal, and Judas, who was still living the illusions of life like many of us. We're walking with the Master every day. Like Judas, he would see Jesus, listen to him, talk to him, but deep inside he was still cultivating illusions. One of the symptoms, unrest. James, exclaimed Judas, wavering between anxiety and torment. Don't you think that the Master is too humble and too good to break the tyrannical subjugation that weighs upon Israel and to abolish the slavery that oppresses God's chosen people? Even spiritists nowadays can easily fall in the same illusion. It's when we hear the dialogue. Oh, but nowadays we can't be humble like Chico Xavier because in the United States it's not going to work. We have to be just like this and that celebrity of religious philosophies. Then we're just under the illusion. The same spell that, and I say spell quote unquote figuratively, that Judas was experiencing. So we need to pay attention to this dialogue, because when we are under illusion, and you know, in Spiritism, we would call this experience of illusions, depending on their gravity and the level, a form of obsession that we call, remember there are three types. We have the simple common obsession. We have subjugation, which is the level that we usually will see in the psychiatric unit, hospitals, right? The kind of block people's will. And then the one in which it's like a blindfold. We are unable to discern correctly, and we think we are so right, and everybody's wrong. When we think everybody's wrong and we are right, red flag for us. It can't be possible. Jesus never came and said, he said, I'm going to be persecuted, but he didn't pity himself, saying, oh, poor me, I love you so much, but you see what people do to me. That's a lesson for us. He said, yeah, they're going to do this to me because they still don't understand it. So he had compassion, but not self-pity. When we are like in that mindset, like the world doesn't understand me, nobody gets me, red flag, self-pity, and it's likely that we're not able to see clearly. Exactly. Hello, Rosemary. It's great to have you here too. So, James replied, but would you envision the master having the destructive predispositions of a worldly warrior? How many people think like this? We can't. Oh no, nowadays people have to understand, even in the Spiritist movement, we cannot be destructive. We cannot fight against anyone. But Vanessa, that person is writing books. They are terrible. What did our guide and model do at his time regarding all the Pharisees, etc.? Did he knock down the doors of the temple and said, you guys, you're fake? He was teaching the disciples, don't be like them, but let them be. Oh, but we have to regulate. No, we don't have to regulate anything. We have to create order inside of organizations, but never regulate. We can help one another, but never go there ostensibly, and or even on the behind the scenes, because there is a form of passive aggressiveness when we start bad-mouthing people, so they are not going to be well received by others. Oh, did you see what he's doing? Did you see what she's doing? And we didn't see Jesus doing that. Of course, if people come to you and say, Vanessa, I read this book. What do you think about it? And I say, you know, usually when people ask me about many books that are coming along, psychographies, mediumistic books, I tell them the truth. I say, look, because we're focused on the English-speaking materials and there's a lot to translate and work upon, we barely have time to study other books other than the one psychographed by Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, and Raul Teixeira, and Kardec's books, and Leon Denis' books. We don't have much time to read or to study those. So I would rather stick with the books that are stellar. You know, I remember Wagner Paixão from Brazil saying, in an analogy, some books are like stars. They shine and they have their own light. Kardec's books. The book psychographed by Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco. But there are other books that are good, but they're not central. They are like the moon, very important, but the sun is more important. Spirit's book, or another book, I'm not going to mention names, that is not central. So, you know, for other planets, they may not be important. They may not be essential. They may help though. Books are always very helpful. Today I was reading an article at Harvard by the publisher Harvard Business Review, talking about how important it is for us to read books to manage our emotions, especially fiction. It's very interesting. Yeah. And you know, in the Spiritist centers at Gilson, we need to maintain order, but not regulating people's behavior. If they want to read this book, that book, if other speakers, other people want to say, that this way of doing mediumship is good or the other. We don't need to create a movement against them, right? We need to be compassionate and kind to one another. We're gonna regret if we do this. Yeah, start creating. It's this habit of the past. And Judas is an example. We can't have destructive predispositions. You want the quiz? I know, I can feel it, people. Quiz time, quiz time. Therapeutic quiz. Do we have destructive predispositions inside of us? Like a worldly warrior? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Do we still have it? Imagine if we're doing this spiritual work with this destructive predisposition. I'm going to do it to show to them that they're wrong, and I'm going to put them aside, and this and that and the other. This is a destructive predisposition, right? Do we have it? Yes or no? Not to me, to ourselves. Now, well, Judas replied to our dear James, not quite, no. But I have the impression that the Messiah does not consider the opportunities. You see how Judas is blind? He's saying the Messiah. The Messiah implies that he was chosen by God, designated by God to fulfill that role. How can Judas know better than the Master? I am shocked, but that's how we are. When we are living illusions, we're blind. We think people that are more experienced than us, they don't know as much as they should. And he says, today, some religious scholars drew my attention, made me feel the futility of always preaching the gospel to the most ignorant and unqualified. Indeed, the needs of the people require a forceful and bold leader. The needs of the people require a forceful and bold leader. And that's when many people nowadays think. And I see, for example, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, and others. For example, in America, if we come with that much woo and the show for spirituality, not necessarily it's going to work. And I don't think people are going to come to understand these teachings because of the vanity of science. Because as the teachings go by, the Spiritist teachings came because it's Christ that comes back, right? In the promised consoler for those who are in need, who are sick. When they are in need and sick, there is no such thing like, oh, I'm here to know science. It's valid to put it together. But we shouldn't feel less if you don't have a PhD, if you don't have a doctorate degree, or even if you are not born in the United States. Because Jesus knew better why others had to come and spread the news, not necessarily being born in the United States. That's how it is. Don't doubt what the Master knows better than us. He planned it, not us. We're simple soldiers, or trying to be, of the army of peace. And then James, with a serene gaze, I know we feel relieved, right, when we get to know of it, that we can be useful, and we don't need to expect for the miracle worker who is born in America to spread this good news. Anyone and everyone should do it. You guys are doing it. We are doing it at our own pace. And it's not on us to be worried about the plan of the general, because soldiers fulfill the task. The general plans them out. we are not the ones who are planning anything. Or are we? Unless we're thinking like Judas and we think we know a better plan. Don't worry. Oh, but we want to have many Americans or many people speaking in English around the world. As Jesus said to Zebedee, our thing is not about number. And God is the planner. Jesus is the one who fulfills. We're the ones who are learning and being guided by Him, joining forces with Him, and redeeming ourselves. So no illusions. We just need to be organized and responsible. But we don't need to be worried about fancy plans of action. Fancy, no, because it's not on us. Relieved? Me too. Israel has always had revolutionary leaders. To date, it still happens. The Messiah, however, comes to perform the true revolution, building His kingdom within the hearts and the souls. So Jesus' revolution, says James, is in the hearts and the souls of each one of us. We are not focusing on an external revolution. How do you feel about it? More tranquil? Because we should feel more tranquil, knowing that we don't need to be worried about conquering anything, anyone, converting anyone, because it begins here. Sincerely begins with us. And when we're doing it naturally, things flow. Judas smiled with irony. Another sign when we are living illusions, unrest, blindness, and blindness in terms of lack of discernment, and irony. Observe the signs so we can do a checkup on us. Am I living illusions right now? Irony. And he added, but can we expect such change without drawing the interest and attention of those in power? Ooh, Judas, take it easy. But to which James responded, and who is more powerful than God, of whom the Master is his divine envoy? You see, friends, who is more powerful than God? And we are here worried about disseminating these teachings to the all-powerful, thinking that they are the ones who are going to spread it out in the world. The whole history of humankind tells us otherwise. Exactly. Here's Rita de Cassius sharing with us. Remember when Chico Xavier stepped this soul here in 1965 to open the doors for Spiritans, and now see our help right together, as well as other expanding, helping, bringing Jesus' love for so many hearts. You're right. The plan is not ours. It's not ours, so you can sleep tranquilly because we're just fulfilling orders. What do we need to do? Have an open heart, a humble mind, or at least practice humble mind. And say, as Mentor Joseph always reminds me, he says, if you want to never be lost again, Vanessa, focus on helping those who suffer. Always remind yourself, there are people who are suffering, and you are co-creator. You are here to extend your help to them. And he says, if you focus on this, you'll never be lost again. Thank you, Mentor Joseph. Because we're not planning. We're not the planners. We're not even the fulfiller, because Jesus is. We're still learning with him how to be one. He's our guide and our model. Right? Yeah. So, when Judas heard that, you know how he felt? He bit his lip. What does that mean? Biting the lip. Emotional body language here. You see how Humberto de Campos, very knowledgeable now. He knows how to recognize the body language, the emotions behind it. He shares with us so we learn it. Another sign. It's like you're biting your lips so you don't express your anger. He was angry. And you're right, Rita. The most important thing is our union, brother to brother, sister to sister, sister to brother. But he proceeded, I do not agree with the principles of inaction, and I believe the gospel can only prevail with the patronage of Caesar's representatives or the administrative authorities of Jerusalem, which determine our destiny. Following the Master in his preachings in Caesarea, in Sebaste, in Chorazin, Bethsaida, while being absent from Capernaum, I have never seen him interested in gaining the attention of the upper classes. Another lesson for us. Jesus never, ever, ever spent time trying to get the attention of the upper classes, meaning the people who had influence, social status. So that's another sign. If we're focusing on that, we're living the illusion that Judas did. No, Spirit is not going to be spread out because influential people get to know of it. That's not how it's going to happen. It is true that truth and love flowed from his divine lips wherever he went. But I have only seen the lepers and the blind, the poor and the illiterate draw near a spring. James replied with mildness. He is a loyal disciple. He is not upset with Judas. He is still mild, he said. Jesus, however, has already explained to us that his kingdom is not of this world. Now, another sign of when we are under the spell of illusions. Remember, unrest, blindness, irony, anger, and uneasiness, impatience. The impatient apostle replied forcefully. You see signs that we are under illusions and we want to enforce it. Judas says, we saw today how the people of Jerusalem covered the Lord's path with palms due to their admiration, their affection. We need, however, to impose the figure of the Messiah on the authorities of the provincial court and temple, so that we can take advantage of this outpouring of affection. Jesus received the popular tribute without taking part in the feverish enthusiasm of those who surrounded him, which is a reason for us to multiply our efforts in his place, so that our position of superiority will be recognized in proper time. See another sign, feeling superior to others? When we are living illusions. Do you buy a good car and you feel like you're better than others? Or when you downsize, do you feel you're inferior to others because you lost a job or you lost something material? Illusions. Illusions. What do? Rejoice. Because we're not living the illusions anymore. I observed, however, that the Master had asserted once that the greatest in the community will be the one that makes himself the smallest. And then James replies, well, Judas, we cannot abide with such excess of theory. I'll be questioned today. he continues explaining. He's saying that what Jesus told them, the kingdom is not of this world, is excess of theory. Another sign of illusions. How many people say, yeah, I believe in Jesus, I am Christian, but in this world we cannot yet be like Jesus. People are going to smash us. Judas, we're still living the illusion. We're still living the illusion. That's the conclusion. Another sign when we think that Jesus' proposal is excess theory that cannot be applicable nowadays, but in the future. I will be questioned today by affluent friends from Jerusalem's political circles. I will do everything possible to establish agreements with the senior officials and important men to develop a new movement towards Messiah's teachings. How many people are creating new movements, even in the spiritist circles, because they believe that the way Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, and many others are just fulfilling is not for the current times. Compromising, delaying the progress. Well, how did James feel about it? Would you be unsettled if Judas told these words to you? Let's learn from James. He's the loyal servant. He gently but firmly, you see, when we learn with the Master, like James, soon we'll be able to be firm and gentle at the same time when needed. He learned with Jesus, and now he's displaying the Christ-like approach. That's our goal. And you know we have mirror neurons. By the law of society, we were created by God to learn from one another. That's why it's important to have community. Community feeling is the most powerful one for our progress. Unless that community is not balanced, and then we derail, we delay it. Okay? But when we are focusing on our progress, we can help each other progress faster just by observing. Just by observing the good in others, and we can emulate, create physiological manifestations in our nervous system that is going to help us manifest the behavior, the attitude, the Christian approach, or the Christ-conscious approach. So, he says, careful what you do, Judas. Judas. Careful what you do. It's like a child. Virginia, careful. Gently but firmly. Would not the use of transitory powers of this world without a justification for using such resource be disrespectful of Jesus' authority? Doesn't the Master have the vision to plumb and understand our hearts? That's interesting, isn't it? The habit of the clergy and the robes of the Roman dignitaries are garments for the earth. The teachings of the Master are from heaven, and it would be a sacrilege to mix its purity with the corrupted organizations of this world. After all, we cannot be wiser or more loving than Jesus. We cannot be wiser or more loving than Jesus. If there are people who think there is a better plan, they are eluded just like Judas was. After all, we cannot be wiser or more loving than Jesus. He knows the best path, and the best opportunity for humankind's new understanding. Success in this world is full of traps for the spirit, and among them, it's possible that we become transformed into some outrageous version of the truth that the Master represents. You see, Jesus knows the best path and the best opportunity for us. Remember when we talk about Jesus like a GPS? How many people have GPS? They doubt the GPS, and they have the GPS of the car and the GPS of the phone. And they're like, and I asked this friend one day, why you keep both? Because I want to see which one has the best route. Well, it's valid, but my friend, you have to keep your eye on the road. One GPS, two GPS, that's very complex and risky. It is risky. Who gives us the best route? Jesus. Too much theory? No. If he says love, love. Oh, but I can't love this person because they're not being nice. Well. Love your enemies. There is this passage in the Gospel according to Spiritism. The love of enemies. And Kardec shares with us that we should understand this invitation by Jesus, the proposal, in the sense of praying for them, wishing them well, not necessarily being best friends physically yet, because sometimes it takes time. It's a two-way road. But we can pray, we can wish them well, like those first Christians who adopted the recommendations by Simon Peter when they referred to the persecutor Saul of Tarsus. And Peter recommended, let us all pray for Saul of Tarsus, because sooner or later he's going to turn his heart to Jesus. And they were right. Let us pray. You see somebody derailing? What does charity, the law of charity, say? Put yourself in the shoes of the person. That if that person is obsessed, if you were that person, what would you like that people do to you? That they badmouth you and treat you as if you had leper? Oh, don't go near Vanessa, because she's like... I'm just saying figuratively speaking, okay? But it can happen. But it can happen to any of us. That's not charitable. How about praying and say, we're going to pray. Oh, that person's going through this, they are doing that. Let us pray. Let us pray. Because if they are that crazy, it's because they need help. Let me be the one who helps. If I can't be there physically, let me pray and trust. In the book Sex and Destiny by André Luiz, there is an unforgettable passage about the detrimental qualities of a judgmental attitude. So there is the man who is cheating on his wife with his lover, André Luiz in the spiritual realm, this other spirit, and they are looking at the couple kissing, and they are like astonished. They're like, I can't believe he's cheating on his sick wife with this young girl. And André Luiz describes that the more they judged the couple, the more they felt like kissing. Can you imagine if our judgmental attitude is making us co-responsible for the worsening of some people's behavior? Because we're pushing them to the abyss of wrongdoings by our own negative thoughts, unkind thoughts. So then, immediately thereafter, Brother Felix, who is more superior than André Luiz and Pedro Neves, he shows up. And André Luiz describes that he had a compassionate look towards the couple, and that vibration made them feel awake, open their eyes, stop kissing. They felt like, let me go my way. Okay, I'll see you later, Showing to us that when we're sending judgmental thoughts to others, we're contributing to their wrong dispositions. Spiritual law of life. Okay. Enough being said. Back to Judas and James. Judas became quiet, but he was distressed. Another sign when we are living illusions, distressed. In the firmament, the last sun rays hit the distant clouds. A whole day went by, while the two disciples took different paths. We love Humberto de Campos' writing, because in his writing, he says the fact and he gives us the lesson. Literally, James took one path and Judas another one. Not only physically, but the psychological, spiritual predisposition was different. In spite of James' loving advice, you see, he's a loyal, Christ-conscious soul. By the way, another quiz for us, therapeutic quiz. Can we already feel that we are a Christ-conscious soul? Can I tell that I am already a Christ-conscious soul? You may be asking, Vanessa, is it possible to have levels? I think so. Like anything that we learn, there are degrees. Where do you think you are in that journey? But already in the journey of Christ consciousness, the awakening of our consciousness to this immortal and universal moral ethical code. Christ consciousness. Right? Yes? Sorry, Rosa. Did you ask anything? Please let me know if there is a question, okay? All right. Judas spent the night overcome with distressing concerns. Do you also go to sleep with distressing concerns? What is that all about? Because when we are aligned and no illusions, we don't sleep with that in mind. But Judas had lots of thoughts, thinking like, how are we going to accelerate the triumph of Christianity in the world? Didn't Israel await a Messiah who would take all power in his hands? By making use of the Messiah's doctrine, he could take it into his own hands. The movement of renewal, blah, 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 while Jesus, through his goodness and humility, will be remembered as a living symbol of the new idea. It's very interesting that Humberto de Campos is telling us that Judas did not betray Jesus consciously speaking. He was living an illusion like a mirage. You are walking in the desert and the hot sun makes us feel unsettled to the point that we start seeing things that don't exist. That's exactly what Judas experienced. He, according to Humberto de Campos, he didn't purposefully say, I want to betray Jesus. No. How many of us are like this in our daily life? Sometimes in a spiritist center. Because we see people who are coordinating the center, we don't agree, we think we have a better plan, but they are the ones who founded the center. They are the ones who work there day in, day out, and then we come one day, we think, I have a better plan than them. So if you do, the recommendation by Kardec, go form your group. Please go form your group. There was one time a person from a spiritist center in another state wrote to me and said, Vanessa, I came from Brazil and I started participating in X center. And I like it, but you know, I see this, that, and the other, and I don't think they are in the right direction. Should I talk to them? red flag. You just come in and you're already diagnosing the center, thinking that you're better than the people who created it, and they're working day in, day out. They are sustaining the center. You're not putting even a penny there to help it, not only financially, but effort-wise, and you think you're better, even if they are wrong. Who are we to think we know better? So what is the recommendation? Read in the Medium's book the chapter on the rules and regulations of our Spiritist Center. The Parisian Spiritist Studies, the Parisian Society of Spiritist Studies by Kardec. If you do not agree, go form your group. But do not bring that vibration of discordance to the center. Let's be humble. And that I have to say, I remember Jorge Godinho Neri, the current president of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation. He came to the United States for a diplomatic mission, but fully recommended by the president of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council at the time, in 1997, 1998. He came to this specific center, and they, without, even though he was fully recommended, he had the experience of it experience, the directors of that center had a rule. They were not going to put anybody to give talks, coordinate studies immediately. Jorge Godinho Neri, seated in that center, like anybody in the audience, listening to the talks for a year. Never complained, never bad-mouthed, never revolutionized anything. He respected until the day they realized he was a real deal. Right or wrong, he respected it. He didn't create difficulties. Lesson for us. Judas thinks he's better. So, recalling the first conversations with authorities from the Sanhedrin, Judas meditated on the execution of his somber plans. He was not alone. We're never alone. Remember André Luiz saying, with our thoughts, we have two options: entering constructive thoughts, constructive currents of thoughts, or destructive. The minute we think we're better than others, we're connecting to destructive line of thoughts. It's our choice. It's our choice. Dawn found him decided, drunk with his illusory dreams. Dawn. We're here at dawn of a new day. And instead of opening a new opportunity of renewal, Judas was drunk of illusions. Drunk. He was numb. He was not conscious anymore. He was drunk in illusions. He would turn in the master to those in power in exchange for his official nomination to direct the activity of his companions. See? Power. And we sell our souls to the devil, quote unquote, figuratively speaking. He would have authority and political privileges. He would satisfy his ambitions, seemingly just, with the objective of organizing the Christian victory among his people. After he attained the high position he was counting on, he would free Jesus and use his spiritual gifts to convert his prestigious friends and protectors. You see the illusion of Judas? He thought he would coordinate everything and use Jesus as a puppet. Like many people, they see mediums nowadays, and they have that managerial, power, and they say, I'm going to be your manager, you know, like an agent of the medium, and you're going to be the medium doing this, that, and the other. Illusions. Illusions. The good mediums do not have agents. They do not have managers. Like Divaldo Franco. You want to talk to him directly. Not to an entourage or somebody, etc. And Chico Xavier tried his best. Though people sometimes used his name to say that they were managing something of his. Not true. Not true. Not even Kardec did that. We don't need an entourage. We don't need political power. We don't need authority. Because we are not the authority. We're disciples. We're apprentices. Nobody is the master. And nobody will be the master. Because there's only one. In his view, the master was too humble and generous to win alone against weakness and violence. Too humble and too generous. Other signs when we're living illusions. We don't like humility, and we are not too much of a big fan of generosity. Signs. The thermometer is telling us red flag, illusions, because we don't like humility, to be humble. We don't like humble settings. We want like a show. We want something big. As dawn approached, the improvident apostle entered the center of the town, and after a while he was received by the Sanhedrin, where he was offered the most relevant promises. Although satisfied with his petty gratifications and crazed by his ambitions, Judas loved the Messiah and waited anxiously for the moment of triumph and would give him the joy of Christian victory through human political maneuvers. It's so interesting. We may love, but when we are blind, we may hurt the very people whom we love. Blindness, illusions, illusions. How many parents, because of the illusions of prioritizing material life, they hurt their own children by not being present? How often at work we hurt the whole company by pushing too hard on the material paradigms, forgetting about the human components of our company. How often in our spiritual, religious, spiritist communities, we hurt the very people who are there because we're focusing too much on showing to others the great deeds that we're doing, forgetting that the people who are there, all that they need is us. Presence. Not us, meaning Vanessa or this person or the other, but our one-on-one with them. Judas is the example of that illusion. He loved the master, but he couldn't see clearly, and he hurt the master and everybody else. Paradoxical, huh? Illusions. Today it's about detecting if we're living under illusions. There's still time. If we're incarnated, we still have time to go around and change it. Hi, Cesar. Thank you so much. God bless you too. Thank you for joining us. We're marching towards the wrap-up of this beautiful chapter. The price of vanity, however, lay in wait for his excessive ambition. Humiliated and mocked, his beloved master was taken to the cross of shame, vilified and flogged. But not a single complaint from those lips that had taught about the truth and the good, simplicity and love. He was martyred on his pathway of anguish, but he only had the utmost forgiveness for his executioners. You're in Brazil? Oh man, that's late in Brazil, but thank you for joining us. And you're right. And you're right, in Brazil, difficult times. And I think the good news, right, Cesar? This book, Boa Nova, can inspire us to be of help at this time also in Brazil and around the world. Never lose hope. Remember, joy, courage, and hope. They are in the command. They need our positive, optimistic hearts. So, observing the events that contradicted his deepest assumptions, Judas Iscariot went to Caiaphas, demanding the fulfillment of his promises. How often we give of ourselves to the illusions of the world, and then the world, like the clergyman who created a plot, and Judas was the victim of his own illusion. The clergyman, however, listened to Judas' words, smiled with sarcasm. That's the world to us. When we fight for these illusions, they say, go, go, go. When we get there and we find out we didn't reach what we wanted, sarcasm. Oh, really? You really thought you're gonna get it, right? Sergio, how are you? And Marcelo, good seeing you here too. So, vainly, Judas appealed to his prestigious friends. He had to recognize the fallibility of human promises. Tormented, distressed. That's why many people are tormented and distressed nowadays, because they are living illusions. They come to us and say, Vanessa, I'm tormented and distressed. Stop. What are your goals and ideals in life? But I want my child to be healthy. I want my husband to be like this. Illusions, my friend. These are not goals in life. Our goal, our ideal, is the kingdom of God in my heart. Meaning, if this is happening, I'm being invited to be patient, loving, kind. Not sad. Because I am a spoiled soul who doesn't get what I want. Judas became tormented, distressed. He searched for his companion friends. He found them, beaten down and humiliated. It seemed, however, that he could recognize the same painful and silent disapproval in each gaze. Hi, Irene. End of the chapter. The 6th hour was long gone, in which the Master expired at the cross, begging forgiveness for his executioners. From far away. He was literally, you see how Humberto de Campos combines the true report with the educational lesson. Judas was far away, not only physically, but he was the inner, completely derailed from the Christ consciousness. Judas contemplated all the distressing and humiliating scenes of the Calvary. Terrible remorse afflicted his torn conscience. When you see your child growing, and then you see the outcome of the lack of our presence, of our affection, bitter remorse. Too late. Passionate tears streamed from his sad and deadened eyes. Deadened eyes, meaning he was blind psychologically. In spite of the vanity to which he became lost, he deeply loved the Messiah. For one brief moment, the sky of the impious city was covered with dark and stormy clouds. With the notion of paying his conscience, the bad apostle left for the accursed villa with the purpose of deserting this world in a supreme treason to the most sacred commitments of his life. And prior to executing his dark plans under the sinister fig tree, and remember when Jesus talked about the dry fig tree? Now Judas is going to commit suicide under a fig tree. He could hear a bitter voice of his tremendous remorse. Horrendous lightning could be seen in the firmament. Violent thunder seemed to bestow a curse of the heaven vilifying forgotten upon that criminal land. However, above all the confused voices of nature, the unhappy apostle, that's how the sign of illusion, the ultimate sign, is unhappiness, heard the consoling and unforgettable Master's voice penetrating the deepest parts of his soul. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Today we are given new tools. If we are tormented, distressed, angry, if we are experiencing unrest, true signs that we are immersed in illusions. Let us meditate and recalibrate ourselves. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I'm not saying the man, but he represents the bridge to our connection with the divine within ourselves. How are you feeling? More joyful? You like the good news of today? It feels good to know that we now can see clearly if we're living in illusion or not. There's still time. Let us meditate. It's still dawn for many of us. For others, it's a new day. Either or, it's an opportunity for us to go within, do this inner journey, and come out recalibrated, realigned with the Christ consciousness. I love you too. Thank you, my friends. Thank you, everyone. And a big hug. Let us use all of this and keep progressing. And until tomorrow.